just got caught up with the game. It is 7:25 a.m. right now where I am. I have been feeling quite ill, massive headache, feeling nauseous, just feeling chills in my body. I don't know what the hell is wrong with me, but I had a rough night. The sleeping has not been good, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get caught up with this game, and I did. This nausea is killing me, but forgive me if my energy level seems any weaker than it usually is. I'll do my best to cover what I saw as best as I can. First and foremost, it was once again the Jonathan Kuminga show in terms of scoring. We saw that against OKC when Steph also missed that game, and Kuminga is quite useful then as well. One thing we're learning about these games when Steph Curry is missing is that Jonathan Kuminga is capable of shouldering on a scoring load. And even though the Warriors were not able to win that OKC game, you saw my reaction video to that game. I mostly commended Kuminga for his efforts, for everybody's efforts in that game. Because obviously how the Warriors have been playing the past 5 games, it's tough to be competitive against a team that is as good as OKC. Okay, now I'm gonna get to some nuances. And to be honest with you, I have some mixed feelings about this game. Because if you saw my last video, then you know what I said. At this point, I'm pretty much rooting against the Warriors because I want Steve Kerr out of here. The guy is bipolar. There is something definitely wrong with him. There will be times when he will be running basically a Terry Stotts offense. And then he just went through this wild stretch of games where he just went back to running this tyrannical motion system where nobody can thrive. And then you watch this game against the Rockets and it's just like, what is this? What are they running? How is it that Jonathan Kuminga is able to score a career high 33 points in this game? How come Andrew Wiggins was able to go off for 20 plus points? What were they running? Well, for a chunk of the first half, they were largely running the motion offense. And then they get into the second half and suddenly they're running a whole lot of down actions, high screens up top, multiple screens, whether it was Kuminga, whether it was Wiggins. These players were going downhill off of a basic screen, not wasting a gazillion possessions, passing as a prerequisite to get into anything. Hey, if you see certain advantages on the floor where you don't have to make a bunch of passes and just get right into that action, well, you go and do that. And if you just go and take a look at the highlights even of how Kuminga basically scored all of his buckets along with Andrew Wiggins, it was all pick and rolls. If you were listening to the broadcast, Kalena Azubuike at some point during I think it was the third quarter or fourth quarter, I don't remember, but the dude was basically saying, I feel like the Warriors should just run pick and rolls for the rest of this game because it's working. Sound familiar? I mean, this is what I've been saying all along about this broken system and offense that Steve Kerr has been running ever since after that Mavs game, where they just basically stopped running pick and rolls. And nobody can get into a rhythm. And by crunch time, nobody is in rhythm. Nobody can create anything. There are tiny lineups on the floor. And the Warriors are just losing clutch game after clutch game after clutch game, right? Just relinquishing all kinds of leads over and over and over again. The difference between those games and this game against the Rockets is that they simplified it. They got out in transition a lot because they were playing great defense. Part of the reason they were playing great defense was because they had bigger lineups on the floor. If you notice, all those times when Andrew Wiggins was doing a really good job scoring off of those pick and roll actions, he was the 3. He was almost never at the 4. And that's where a guy like Andrew Wiggins can thrive the most, when he can, number one, properly do his job as the POA at the 3, but also has a 4 and a 5 behind him, and really good ones at that, to keep the defense intact so that he doesn't have to overtax himself trying to play the big position where he just doesn't belong. And I would say that the Warriors really lucked out by not having to see Tari Eason in this game, because he would have made a giant difference for the Rockets defense and their overall size and their overall defensive versatility. And I've been saying all along about Jonathan Kuminga, well, the least that Steve Kerr can do is maximize his offensive potential by taking advantage of the things that he's really good at, instead of forcing him to fit into this motion offense where he cannot thrive pretty much ever. And Kuminga was even 3 of 6 from the 3-point line. One thing I noticed about some of his 3-point shooting is that when he decided to shoot the ball in his own rhythm and in his own comfort zone, he hit it with confidence. And when he shoots like that is when I believe the most in his shot. I have been saying all along that when this guy is letting it fly confidently and rhythmically, he's capable of shooting something close to 40%. I still feel that way, even though he's been all over the map in terms of shooting the 3-point shot. I just feel that Steve has done nothing to try to help empower his confidence as well as just about every player that is on this roster when it comes to their level of confidence. And well, in this game, we saw those things. So if Steve Kerr somehow stays with this kind of offense even when Steph Curry comes back, and yes, use motion, but add in a mixture of plenty of pick and rolls, especially when it's working, and more oftentimes than not, the pick and roll action is favorable because it creates a direct spatial advantage to whoever has the ball that is coming off the screen. So if Jonathan Kuminga and Andrew Wiggins can be super effective coming off of high screens, what do you think that Steph Curry can do with it if he's given enough possessions where he can do those things? Do you see why I've been so frustrated and it's so maddening that Steve keeps doing these weird things where sometimes he'll go and allow his team to do this all day, and then the players have a lot of rhythm and momentum even in crunch time, even without Steph Curry, and they're able to come away with a win like this. The other thing to consider is that they mostly ran a 9-man rotation, a little bit of Pat Spencer. I think they used him for about 6 minutes. So that was technically a 10-man rotation, but it was mostly a group of 9 players, and you live with the results of those 9 players. And more times than not, you're going to get the best results possible for your team because players have a chance to make up for whatever little segments of deficiencies in a game when you have enough minutes and an opportunity to make up for some of those lapses. And yeah, sometimes some players are just going to end up having a bad game. It happens. This is the game of basketball. It happens to literally everybody, every single player that has ever played the game of basketball. It's okay. Having said that, this was a defensive battle, and the Warriors truly won this game with defense. And in that sense, Kevon Looney, I would say, was the most important player in this game in the starting lineup, playing that center spot and basically just making Alperen Sengun look like an afterthought for a chunk of the game. You know, Looney shot just 2 of 7 from the field, but just the physical force that he has, that ability, that's what I call championship caliber defense. And that is why I have been defending Kevon Looney for a long time, because I know what he's capable of as a 16-game player. Not only that, anytime a guy like Jalen Green tried to get into the paint, Looney is like a brick wall, and whenever Jalen made contact with Looney, he was just completely thrown off rhythm, and he just couldn't get going whenever he got into that paint, largely because of Kevon Looney. So Looney, unsung hero, 4 points and 11 rebounds. The numbers will never tell you the sheer impact that Looney had on this game. The second most important player, Andrew Wiggins. If you take a look at the game that Jalen Green had, I mean, the guy was pretty much a 0 for a chunk of the game. He shot 4 of 16, just absolutely disgraceful, and he was matched up against Andrew Wiggins, and that just did not go well for him at all. This is why a guy like Andrew Wiggins is so vital for the success of the Warriors, because that POA ability of shutting down or severely limiting the potential of the other team's best perimeter guys. Once again, championship caliber. On top of that, he was just so active on both ends of the floor. 23 points, 9 rebounds too. I mean, he just stuffed the stat sheet. You can take a look right here. And one thing that's been really cool about Andrew Wiggins this season, and you know, offensively, he has this weird little things that he struggles with. You know, he tends to get stripped a lot when he gets into the paint and there's a good defender on him. You know, sometimes in traffic, he tends to lose his dribble. Sometimes he'll miss a bunny layup. And sometimes he just has poor touch around the basket and things like this, right? Offensively, he's got these weird little things that can sometimes be very frustrating. And needless to say, the free throw shooting has been inconsistent for a chunk of his career. So from a coordination standpoint, he's not always the best. And yet, when you look at the overall body of work, he's capable of being such an impactful and powerful player when you give him the proper role. I'm gonna say this until this just becomes such common knowledge that the guy is always maximized. He is a small forward exclusive, and when you put him there and allow him to do the things that a small forward does, he can absolutely thrive on almost every single night. It's when Steve goes to these smaller lineups and everybody has to overcompensate because a smaller guy is at a bigger position all the way across the board, and that just makes the game tougher for everybody else, including Andrew Wiggins. You know, that was a huge reason why last season things looked so much harder for everybody, including Andrew Wiggins, including Kevon Looney, including Draymond Green, everybody, man. And I gotta say, I really like the energy of Kuminga in this game. You even seen him really fight for rebounds and helping the bigs in different ways and being involved in that way and being hyper aggressive. And he's done a little bit more of those things this season. I gotta assume that better coaching has had a hand in his improvements in some of those areas, with Jerry Stackhouse constantly grading every player based on the good and the bad things that they did. You know, always when it comes to Kuminga is the number one, a level of consistency game by game. You know, you can't have an amazing game like this and then come the next game and you're barely doing anything or any of these things. And one thing about Kuminga that you'll notice from last season and even after this game is that he plays better the more he is encouraged and empowered. Empowerment is such an important factor, especially for young players. And that empowerment was there in this game, but will it be there in the coming games? And again, this is where my frustrations come with Steve Kerr, because again, this stuff is all over the map. It's never consistent. You know, they play pick and roll all day in this game, and then the next game, who knows what they're going to do? They're going to play against the Timberwolves, and for all we know, they might just run the motion to the ground again. And if they do that, well, prepare for another rough night. But if they play more like this and take advantage of a doof like Gobert and get him out to the three-point line, get him involved in high pick and roll actions and compromise their defense and take advantage of these great actions that the Warriors can run anytime they want to, well, then they'll go back to looking like the best team like they were in the first 11 games. And let me just say in regards to Trayce Jackson-Davis, because people constantly come at me about this guy. This guy is a 57th pick in the second round, and he is absolutely needed and a vital part of what the Warriors do from a defensive standpoint. And the fan base has just gotten to a point where anything he does where it's like not perfect, they'll hate him for it. It's like he has to shoot 80% from the field for them to be satisfied somehow. And he has to be absolute divine perfection from a defensive standpoint. And if not, then he's just complete and utter garbage. I don't know where this energy is coming from. It's completely ridiculous. And it's really sad. You look at tonight's game and you look at the plus minus, right? And it says, oh, minus 17. Oh, Trayce Jackson is unplayable. It just blows my mind. Warriors fans are so super selective about what they choose to see and what they choose not to see. Trayce Jackson-Davis was matched up against Steven freaking Adams tonight. And he fought like hell. He was 3 of 4 from the field. God, how dare he miss that one field goal? How dare he not go 4 for 4? And even though he fought like hell to make sure that he boxes out Steven Adams every single freaking possession, he ends up with 0 rebounds, and yet the team won the rebounding battle 54-45. The dude is playing with basically nobody who's capable of throwing him a proper lob. I mean, there's one particular player, he's once again wide open for a lob dunk, and Paz ends up throwing a pass that hits the rim, and then the other team gets out in transition. And when the other team gets out in transition and scores there, you realize that there's like a 4 or 5 point swing, and that negative ends up going to Trayce, right? Not to also mention the fact that he's playing next to Moses Moody, who was 1 for 7 from the field. It's not like Trayce has ever given an opportunity to score, nor have any plays run for him ever. Let me put it this way. If they didn't have Trayce Jackson-Davis in this game, there's no way in hell that they win this game. It's plain and simple. So even in a win like this, like I took a look at some of my mentions on Twitter and like, I mean, people are just disgusting. I wasn't even there, man. I was ill. And people are still coming at me about how Trayce Jackson-Davis is trash. I'm sick and tired of this freaking ingrate behavior. I can literally make a film breakdown shutting all of them up, showing all the important things that Trayce does in this game. And again, Moses Moody shot 1 of 7 from the field, and he shot 3 of 6 from the free throw line. I don't hear anybody coming at me about Moses Moody. Oh my God, this guy is terrible, inconsistent, he shouldn't be on this team. I don't see any of that. And yet you see all this hateful energy about Trayce Jackson-Davis. I think it has something to do with the fact that he and Jonathan Kuminga are in direct competition for minutes, because especially to close games and stuff like this, you're either going to close games with Jonathan Kuminga or Trayce Jackson-Davis. It is competition for those minutes. And I completely acknowledge some of the issues that he has in terms of not being better finishing layups, not being more aggressive around the rim in general. I want him to be super forceful. And this is something that I talked about even before the season started. And I've openly talked about how disappointed I've been that he hasn't taken any kind of leap since last season. Same thing with Paz, right? These sophomore slumps are real. But for me, defense and defensive structure always comes first. Look, man, if Trayce played an absolutely awful game, I'll be the first one to say it. And if the plus minus justifies that level of play, then I will use those numbers to support what I'm talking about. But when the numbers are clearly skewed for various reasons, and then people choose to weaponize those things, even in a win, well, I think that's awfully disingenuous and kind of disgusting. And since people can't seem to appreciate a player who's worth less than $2 million this season, and giving you high quality, super legitimate rotational piece stuff while never complaining about the fact that he's never involved in the offense, and there's not a single player on this damn team outside of Steph Curry that can throw a proper lob to him, like, I'm just sick and tired of it, man. And you know what? This is gonna be the last damn time that I address these loser fans who can't properly appreciate the value of a defensive piece that the team cannot properly win without. That is a fact. And you know, I don't know what it is about these Rockets, but the Warriors have apparently beat this team like 15 straight times. No matter what circumstances or conditions the Warriors are dealing with, the Rockets are the one team that just cannot seem to get over the hump. It's like they are cursed against the Warriors. And well, winning this game, in terms of where the Warriors would be in the standings, is huge. Every single game counts in the Western Conference. It is a dogfight right now in the wild, wild West. I'm just hoping that somehow, magically, Steve Kerr turns around and decides to run more stats actions and mix a lot more pick and rolls to make sure that more individual players are in rhythm and are playing confident instead of being confined into this motion system where everybody has to play the exact same way. If they play more like they did in this Rockets game moving forward, then great things are ahead for the Warriors with Steph Curry due back and Draymond also due back soon. There has to be a consistent style of play that Steve has to incorporate instead of yo-yoing back and forth night to night on what kind of offense he's gonna run. Anyway, these fluctuations are running wild. I'm hoping to be able to get some sleep after I finish editing this video. Hopefully I'll be well enough to cover the game that's coming up against the Timberwolves. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.